Okay, tonight is Alma chapter 49.
And now it came to pass in the 11th month of the 19th year, on the 10th day of the month, the armies of the Lamanites were seen approaching towards the land of Ammonihah. And behold, the city had been rebuilt, and Moroni had stationed an army by the borders of the city, and they had cast up dirt round about to shield them from the arrows and the stones of the Lamanites. For behold, they fought with stones and with arrows. Behold, I said that the city of Ammonihah had been rebuilt. I say unto you, yea, that it was in part rebuilt. And because the Lamanites had destroyed it once, because of the iniquity of the people, they supposed that it would again become an easy prey for them.
So what you have here is a little report on how the battle is playing out. Okay? So they decided that the Lamanites did they were going to attack one of the Nephite cities. So they picked the city of Ammonihah. Now the reason that they picked that city, and this was referenced in one of the earlier chapters, is it was a Nephite city where the Nephites were not particularly supportive of serving God, that they were not into the Nephite program about God and church, and so it had previously been destroyed. Right, the Lamanites had attacked that city at an earlier date, and it was destroyed. So now some time had passed, and they were in the process of rebuilding it. They said, hey, that city's an easy city, so let's start with that city. We'll go ahead and knock out that city again, and then we'll have a nice stronghold among the Nephite land where we can move out from there. So that's why they start with the weak link. And if you think from a war strategy, it's not a bad strategy, right? You start with the weak link and you topple that first. You get a win under your belt, and then you go from there. Okay, so that was the plan. So it says they went toward the land of Ammonihah, right? But see, Moroni, who is the Nephite general, he's thinking one step ahead. Say, let's see now. If I were them, what would I do? I would attack the weak. Let's fix up the weak city then. Let's strengthen the weak city. And so that's just what they did. So he says Moroni stationed an army by the borders of the city, Ammonihah, and made big mounds of dirt and so forth in front of it, so that when they come in with their arrows and their stones, they're throwing them into piles of dirt, right? Instead of being able to burn down the city, it hits a pile of dirt and nothing happens. So that they were prepared for that particular attack, right? See, and then 3 is just repeating why the Lamanites picked that particular city to go after. But see, Moroni was prepared for them. Now, Moroni being a good general, so he was thinking that way, but also, as we had read previously, he was also a spiritual man. He was somebody who was prayerful and looked to God for a direction. See, so God inspired him to make good choices and good decisions and good strategy, and so that's why it worked out this way. So as long as he was the one leading their army, they did well because he was depending upon God for help also.
But behold, how great was their disappointment! For behold, the Nephites had dug up a ridge of earth round about them, which was so high that the Lamanites could not cast their stones and their arrows at them, that they might take effect. Neither could they come upon them, save it was by their place of entrance. Now at this time the chief captains of the Lamanites were astonished exceedingly, because of the wisdom of the Nephites in preparing their places of security. Now the leaders of the Lamanites had supposed, because of the greatness of their numbers, yea, they supposed that they should be privileged to come upon them as they had hitherto done. Yea, and they had also prepared themselves with shields and with breastplates, and they had also prepared themselves with garments of skins, yea, very thick garments, to cover their nakedness.
In verse 3, as we just read, it says that the Lamanites picked the city because they thought it was the weak link. But then as you see in 4, it says, how great was their disappointment, right? Because they figured this would be the easy one, and that would help them to then be prepared to take on the more difficult cities. And here they couldn't even get in there. It says, talked about dirt, and it says they had dug a ridge of earth round about them, which was so high that they couldn't climb over it, right? So it says they couldn't even get their stones and arrows over them, right? So they used the earth and the dirt to build like basically a wall all around the city, such that there was only one way in and out of the city, which was through the entrance. You picture a city. See, I mean, today we have cities that you just have streets that you drive in here or there, right? But imagine a city with like basically a wall all around it, so that you can't get in except through the one way, through the entrance to the city. And where do you think they had their soldiers stationed? By the entrance to the city. Okay, so their only way in was not going to be a successful entrance, all right? But then they couldn't get in any other way, so therefore they were well prepared. So as you can see their reaction, it says the chief captains of the Lamanites were astonished because of the wisdom of the Nephites of preparing their security, right? And here they came with their weapons, they came with breastplates and shields. They were ready to fight, and they couldn't get at them, right? They couldn't get, because they were inside the city, and then they couldn't get to them. So for all their preparation, it was for naught, right? And the reference to them coming with the breastplates and so forth, and the thick garments to cover their nakedness, that's a reminder of they learned, right? Because you remember the previous time that they fought, they came just with wearing loincloths, right? And so they got all cut up and easily, and the Nephites were all wearing, breastplates and helmets and so forth. They didn't stand a chance, right? So they learned somewhat. They were a little more prepared, but yet here still the Nephites were one step ahead of them, right? They couldn't even get at them now because they were inside the city with all the mound of earth all around it. I think it was in the previous chapters, it had said that during the time of peace that Moroni had taken advantage of the time to do this kind of work, right? That instead of saying, okay, the Lamanites went home, and so now let's just go on vacation, right? It says, hey, we got some time now. Let's prepare ourselves for the next time they come. And so that's what they were doing. They were using the time to do this kind of stuff to prepare the city. So this way, when they came again, they would be prepared and be able to hold them off. Okay, so making good use of the time was a good choice there.
And being thus prepared, they supposed that they should easily overpower and subject their brethren to the yoke of bondage, or slay and massacre them according to their pleasure. But behold, to their uttermost astonishment, they were prepared for them, in a manner which never had been known among the children of Lehi. Now they were prepared for the Lamanites to battle after the manner of the instructions of Moroni. And it came to pass that the Lamanites, or the Amalekites, were exceedingly astonished at their manner of preparation for war.
Yeah, it's really, again, just highlighting their disappointment, their astonishment, their surprise at how, even though they came more prepared, that they were going nowhere because the Nephites were even more prepared, right? So it says, in 8, it says, had never been known among the children of Lehi. He's the original father, right? Back at the beginning of the book, page 1. Okay, you go back to page 1. It starts with Lehi, and Lehi had sons, Nephi and Laman and Lemuel, and then so everybody here is descendants from them. Okay, so that's why when it says never before among the children of Lehi, it means the whole history of this group that this was had never occurred like this before. So yeah, that's why I just want to make sure we understood what they were saying, right? So it's really saying in our whole 500-year history here, we never saw anything like this. And among the children of Lehi, which would be everybody, okay, because Lehi was the father of everybody.
Now, if King Amalickiah had come down out of the land of Nephi at the head of his army, perhaps he would have caused the Lamanites to have attacked the Nephites at the city of Ammonihah. For behold, he did care not for the blood of his people. But behold, Amalickiah did not come down himself to battle. And behold, his chief captains durst not attack the Nephites at the city of Ammonihah. For Moroni had altered the management of affairs among the Nephites, insomuch that the Lamanites were disappointed in their places of retreat, and they could not come upon them.
Now it's mentioning King Amalickiah, right? The person who goes with the Amalekites. That now, if you remember Amalickiah, he's the bad guy, right? He's the one that we've read about in the last few chapters that through all kinds of doing things wrong or doing things behind people's back or plotting and planning, that he got himself to be king, right? Because he was basically a nobody. In fact, he was a Nephite person, and he decided to try to be king of the Lamanites. And then he took over their army. Then he got the king killed, and he got the queen. He married the queen and became the king, right? So he had a whole process that he went through to become king. So he had gone through all this subterfuge and espionage and so forth to become the king. And so this is now who we're talking about. But for this particular battle, he just sent the army out, and he didn't go himself, as it says. Now it says if he had come with them, they might have done something differently. It says if he was there, he would have sent them in, right? And it says he didn't care how many of his people got killed, right? That's what he said. He didn't care about this shedding the blood of his people. So he would have just said, go through the entrance, and see how many of them you can kill, right? So who cares if 100 of mine get killed for one of theirs? He didn't care about the people anyway. And so he would have sent them in, but he wasn't there. So the captains who were in charge, they were more sensible. They said, "There's no way, but there's no way we're going to win this. So we're not even going to try. We're not going to go through that entrance and all get killed." So that's why it says they durst not attack the Nephites at Ammonihah. This one, Moroni had altered the way it was managed, so they were disappointed, but they backed off because they said, "There's no way we're going to get into the city." So they were being sensible, but it's just pointing out that the king, who was kind of crazy, I guess, but he said he didn't care about his people. He said, "Go, yeah, attack!" And then so why don't my men get killed? Who cares? Yeah, but since he wasn't there, so they got to not go through that.
Therefore they retreated into the wilderness and took their camp and marched towards the land of Noah, supposing that to be the next best place for them to come against the Nephites. For they knew not that Moroni had fortified or had built forts of security for every city in all the land round about. Therefore they marched forward to the land of Noah with a firm determination. Yea, their chief captains came forward and took an oath that they would destroy the people of that city. But behold, to their astonishment, the city of Noah, which had hitherto been a weak place, had now by the means of Moroni become strong, yea, even to exceed the strength of the city Ammonihah. And now behold, this was wisdom in Moroni, for he had supposed that they would be frightened at the city Ammonihah, and as the city of Noah had hitherto been the weakest part of the land, therefore they would march thither to battle, and thus it was according to his desires.
Right, it says when they come up to the city of Ammonihah, they said, "There's no way we're getting in here." So all right, so let's back off and let's go somewhere else. Let's go to a different city. So it's okay. Where else should we go now? All right, let's go to the city of Noah, right? Because that's a pretty weak city also. That's not too far from here. So they went. They said, well, that's the next best place, as it says in 12. So that's the next best place to come against the Nephites. So we're going to go attack that city. They protected this one. We're going to go attack that one, right? So, but no, I mean, if Moroni was smart enough to protect Ammonihah and knowing they would come there, so it's almost like a chess game, right? Let me see now. If I were them, what would I do next? I would go to the next city, which was also a weak city of Noah. So that one is protected too. Right, as it says in 13, they knew not that Moroni had fortified or built forts of security for every city and all the land round about. Right, probably starting from Ammonihah and moving outward, that they had protected all the cities, because they said this is the path they're going to take. They're going to come here and then they're going to move out from there. So they had protected those cities, right? And so, which is what they did. So then when they got the city of Noah, the same thing, that they really couldn't do anything. It says it had been a weak place, now it was a strong place. It says even to exceed the strength of the city Ammonihah, so it was even more protected, right? And then the 15 says this was wisdom in Moroni, for he says this right there. He supposed that they would be frightened at Ammonihah, as Noah was a weak land before, that they would probably go there next. So he was thinking one step ahead of them each step of the way. So it's pretty cool, really. He's one step ahead of them, and they're doing exactly what he guessed that they would have done. And so at each step of the way, they were turned back, right? Because they couldn't get into those cities. Okay. So as I said, it's partly being a good strategist, but also being inspired by God to kind of be able to think through that and say, okay, yeah, this is what they're going to do.
And behold, Moroni had appointed Lehi to be chief captain over the men of that city. And it was that same Lehi who fought with the Lamanites in the valley on the east of the river Sidon. And now behold, it came to pass that when the Lamanites had found that Lehi commanded the city, they were again disappointed, for they feared Lehi exceedingly. Nevertheless, their chief captains had sworn with an oath to attack the city. Therefore they brought up their armies.
As they were headed for the city of Noah, I guess because they were rebuffed at the previous city of Ammonihah, that they kind of promised among themselves, whatever we have to do, we're going after the city, right? So even if they're protected, we're going to attack anyway. So like in 13, it said they took an oath that they would destroy the people of that city. So they convinced themselves that we're going after the city no matter what we find. All right. So when they got there, it's okay. This is protected too, but we told ourselves that we're going to go for it, so we're going to go for it. All right. But now it says that they were disappointed to find out one other thing. A man named Lehi was in charge of the army of that city. So he said when they found out Lehi was the chief captain, so this was they fought with him before. They said, oh, we fought with this guy before and we got beat. So this is not looking too good, right? They're prepared for us. They got their star captain here of the army. Right? This is not looking too good. So perhaps the smart thing to do at this point would have been to turn around and go away, but they promised to each other that this is the city we're going after, right? So in 17 it says, nevertheless, their chief captains have sworn with an oath to attack the city, therefore they brought up their armies, all right? So I guess they were embarrassed at not being able to get anywhere at the first city, so they said the second one's the one, we're going after that one. So they probably told all their men, when we get to Noah, we're going to attack that one. Because who knows, maybe that some of the men were saying, well, why are we retreating? Why are we attacking? And they said, well, we can't beat this city, so the next city's the one. The next one is when we'll attack that one. So when they come up to that one, so this is the one. Even though now it's better protected, it has their star captain is in charge, but we're going for it anyway because we said this was the one that we're going to go after.
Now behold, the Lamanites could not get into their forts of security by any other way save by the entrance, because of the highness of the bank which had been thrown up, and the depth of the ditch which had been dug round about, save it were by the entrance. And thus were the Nephites prepared to destroy all such as should attempt to climb up to enter the fort by any other way, by casting over stones and arrows at them. Thus they were prepared, yea, a body of their strongest men, with their swords and their slings, to smite down all who should attempt to come into their place of security by the place of entrance, and thus were they prepared to defend themselves against the Lamanites.
Right, so the description of the scene at the city of Noah is similar to the one from Ammonihah, right? But yet they're going to go for it anyway. But as you can see, it says that they had arranged it so that, again, they piled up the earth all around so that there was really no easy way to get over the top, and on top of which they were probably sitting up on top ready in case anybody was going to try it. Right? And, you can imagine trying to climb up the side of a hill. I mean, or just with dirt, you'd probably be sliding down, and while they're up there, throwing stones or shooting arrows at you, it would not be pretty. So it really wasn't too sensible to try that. So it says that the only way in again was by the entrance to the city, right? As it says in 18. All right, so that was the only way, and they were definitely protecting the entrance, right? I'm sure they had all the soldiers right there. So hey, come on in, and we're ready for you, right? So it says in 19 they were prepared to destroy anybody who should try to come in any way, and they were prepared with swords and slings, but by the entrance to defend the entrance. All right, so they were well prepared, and so I'm sure they heard them coming. They knew they were there. So it's okay, they're here. Just get ready. Whichever way they're going to come in, we're going to be ready to attack. So they were prepared for them and ready for whatever was going to come their way.
And it came to pass that the captains of the Lamanites brought up their armies before the place of entrance, and began to contend with the Nephites to get into their place of security. But behold, they were driven back from time to time, insomuch that they were slain with an immense slaughter. Now when they found that they could not obtain power over the Nephites by the pass, they began to dig down their banks of earth, that they might obtain a pass to their armies, that they might have an equal chance to fight. But behold, in these attempts they were swept off by the stones and arrows which were thrown at them, and instead of filling up their ditches by pulling down the banks of earth, they were filled up in a measure with their dead and wounded bodies.
All right, so you see what happened, all right? Then in 21, they tried to go in through the entrance, and they were driven back time and again, so they weren't able to get too far there. And so they said, all right, these walls, we've got to be able to do something with these walls. Let's pull down the dirt. Maybe we can pull down the wall and get over that. So, with the bit about the ditches, that's probably where they dug it from, so on top of it being the walls, and there was now the ditches that they dug from all around, so you couldn't even, you were already too lower than the ground anyway. So they figured, we'll just pull the dirt back down into the ditches and then get over the wall. Well, it says, what wound up in the ditches instead? And wounded bodies wound up in the ditches, because they're sitting up on top of the walls with their stones and their arrows, and they're picking them off as they're trying to pull down the walls of earth. So again, that was not a good plan either, right? So they filled the ditches, but not with what they planned to, right? So that was an unsuccessful attack.
Thus the Nephites had all power over their enemies, and thus the Lamanites did attempt to destroy the Nephites until their chief captains were all slain. Yea, and more than 1,000 of the Lamanites were slain, while on the other hand there was not a single soul of the Nephites which was slain. There were about 50 who were wounded, who had been exposed to the arrows of the Lamanites through the pass, but they were shielded by their shields and their breastplates and their headplates, insomuch that their wounds were upon their legs, many of which were very severe.
It says that they, of course, were they were slaughtered here, right? And it gives the count. So of course, they kept fighting since all the chief captains were dead. So they were really going to live up to their promise that we said we're going to attack the city. So by George, we're going to attack the city. So they just kept going after it until all the chief captains were killed and a lot of the men were killed. It says more than 1,000 of them were killed, right? And on the Nephi side, none, okay, because they were all inside the city. Now it says, maybe some random arrows gave them some wounds in their legs, it said, but so about 50 got injured, but nobody killed. So I mean, that's as one side of a battle as you can imagine, right? Some of the other battles we read about, it might have said, okay, 2,000 of theirs got killed and 500 of ours or something. So, but this was 1,000 and 0. So this was as one sided of a battle as you can get. So certainly, as we read last week about Moroni being a godly leader of the army, so you can see that God was on their side here, because there was a total massacre, right? They were protected. They were fighting for a positive cause, which was to protect their wives, their children, their homes, their religious liberty, and so forth. The Lamanites just wanted to take over and run the land. So God helped them to win this particular battle.
And it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw that their chief captains were all slain, they fled into the wilderness. And it came to pass that they returned to the land of Nephi to inform their king Amalickiah, who was a Nephite by birth, concerning their great loss. And it came to pass that he was exceedingly angry with his people, because he had not obtained his desire over the Nephites. He had not subjected them to the yoke of bondage. Yea, he was exceedingly wroth, and he did curse God and also Moroni, swearing with an oath that he would drink his blood. And this because Moroni had kept the commandments of God in preparing for the safety of his people.
Now the battle's over. It says the Lamanites see that their chief captains are all dead. All right, so whoever's left living, it's time to retreat. All right, so they're going to go back to the land of Nephi, which, as we said another time, the land of Nephi is where the Lamanites live. Right, and so they went back there, and they went back to the king Amalickiah. They had to tell him what happened. Right, now as bloodthirsty as he was and as anxious as he was to take over, I mean, I probably didn't have to read in verse 26 what his reaction would have been, right? But it says right there, it says he was very angry with his people, and because he expected them to come back and say, we won, we took over the land, so now you're king of everybody. And instead, all the chief captains are dead, and 1,000 of his men are dead, and I got nothing, right? So it says he was angry, he hadn't obtained his desire, and it says he was cursing God and Moroni, who he had already met in the previous battle. He says, I'll drink his blood, right? So they just make these wild oaths and promises. That's how angry he was, right? But and it just puts in a little point at the end. It says all this because Moroni kept the commandments of God in preparing for the safety of his people. All right, so that's the only thing Moroni did, if you will, wrong, was that he was just following the commandments of God, and God told him to protect the people. So they built up the cities, they protected the people, and so the Lamanites decided to attack anyway, and this is what happened to them.
And it came to pass that on the other hand, the people of Nephi did thank the Lord their God because of his matchless power in delivering them from the hands of their enemies. And thus ended the 19th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Yea, and there was continual peace among them, and exceeding great prosperity in the church, because of their heed and diligence which they gave unto the word of God, which was declared unto them by Helaman, and Shiblon, and Corianton, and Ammon and his brethren, yea, and by all those who have been ordained by the holy order of God, being baptized unto repentance, and sent forth to preach among the people.
It's kind of giving you the aftermath of both sides, right? It says when the armies got back to the Lamanite land, it says the king was angry, cursing God, and swearing oaths and so forth, and then that was his reaction. But now, meanwhile, back in the land of where the Nephites live, of course, it's a different result, right? As you can see, it says the people of Nephi were thanking God for preserving them, right? And this is the 19th year when it was ending, and this says there was continual peace there, that the prosperity of the church, and it mentions those who were the leaders of the church were now able to go about and keep the church going, and they were worshiping God. So it was a totally different environment, and so this was the people of God at this time, and they were led by the men of God. Right, it says Helaman, Shiblon, and Corianton. Since Alma had been in charge of the church, then now he had died, and so now his sons had taken over, and so they were now leading the church. Helaman, Shiblon, and Corianton, and then it also mentions Ammon and his brethren. See, they were the four sons of Mosiah, right? So they were also men of God, right? So these were all working together to bring forth the things of God and the things of the church.